A woman gives birth to her firstborn in a Buddhist temple, while her husband, Dago, renounces the Buddha and decides to join the side of evil. A man stabs a dagger into the back of a monk guarding the hall of the underworld and performs a rite of summoning. His lands are plagued by terrible famines, endless epidemics, and wars that claim the lives of his subjects. The man wants to make a deal. If the demons will protect his lands and make him ruler of this country, he will give everything he has. A terrible thunderstorm breaks out in the city. Dago goes back to the temple to see his newborn heir. The boy is alive, but born with terrible defects. His eyes, skin, and limbs are missing. Dago realizes that the deal has been struck and asks the midwife to carry the creature away. The midwife grandmother decides to float the unfortunate creature down the river. She puts the boy in the boat when suddenly, a huge spider-like demon grabs and eats the woman alive. A blind hunter pounces on the demon and hacks the monster to pieces. The man senses something alive floating down the river, but cannot determine its origin. The Dago lands, exhausted by famine and epidemic, finally saw their heyday. The little body, too weak to utter even a squeak, quietly disappeared into obscurity. There was not another soul on earth aware of the incident. 16 years have passed. A little boy named Dororo sells crockery and fabrics at the local market. The boy, taking a job as a guard for the local dealers, has stolen their goods, and now he is being persecuted for it. The men beat the boy half to death and notice a strange boy standing on a bridge not far from them. The boy looks at the mountain of garbage approaching the shore. The mountain comes to life and begins, one by one, to eat the men who mocked the boy. When it reaches the boy jumps off the bridge and engages the monster in combat. The samurai throws off his prosthetic arms, beneath which are implanted swords in his joints. Having quickly defeated the monster, the boy approaches Dororo to retrieve his prostheses. The boy notices that the rest of the boy's body, as well as his hands, are made of wood. Dago enters the hall of the underworld and notices that the statue of one of the demons is split in half. The man has already had a second heir. However, this boy is healthy and strong. Dororo goes after Hyakimaru. After fighting that demon, the guy's mask flew off his face and within seconds, his disfigured face grew real skin. Hyakimaru cannot see or hear Dororo. But still, there is one thing the boy could see from birth. The flame of the soul burning in people's hearts. By the color of the flame, the guy can tell the difference between hatred and hostility and kindness. Also, the guy has superhuman senses and physical strength. Because of this, he has been able to survive the darkness that has enveloped him since birth. He allowed Dororo to stay by his side because the color of his soul didn't indicate danger. And this soul itself did not pass him by, but decided to help the boy in his difficult journey. It was the second soul in his life that had done so. Dororo brings Hyakimaru to the village and arranges with the local community for his buddy to exterminate the monsters plaguing their settlement for a decent fee. The deputy headman invites the young men to spend a night in his barn. A strange creature with a huge head enters the barn, endlessly repeating the same question. The boy is frightened by the monster, but Hyakimaru does not react in any way to its presence because the creature's soul is pure. The next morning, the village chief invites the young men to his chambers. Meeting Bandai, Hyakimaru draws his blades. Dororo forbids the lad to attack the innocent woman. The council rushes to the noise and upon seeing the armed lad, decides to lock the gang up in the barn. There too, the young men meet a blind old man. The man tells Dororo about his ability to distinguish human souls, and the boy realizes that his new friend probably relies on similar sensations. The lights go out in the barn, and the blind men begin to sense the presence of the monster. They get out through the well and go back to Bandai's chambers. Her soul is blood red, and beneath her flesh hides a horrible-looking demon. The deputy headman helped Bandai the whole time by feeding the wanderers to the demon. Otherwise, the woman would have devoured their entire village. Hyakimaru pierces the woman's forehead with his blade, and she finally leaves the village. Hyakimaru writes his name in the sand to new acquaintances. The man recalls that he had already felt this boy's soul once before. Then, at the river tributary, 16 years ago, after defeating Bundai, another sculpture collapses in the hall of the underworld, and Hyakimaru's body recovers even more affected tissue. Dr. Juchi is a military doctor who creates artificial prostheses for the wounded and the dead. One day, according to the parishioners, his assistant Kanabe learns some terrible information about the doctor. The man served Shiba. During the war with his clan, Kanabe's father died. The boy leaves Jukei's house. The man wants to stop the boy, but stumbles and falls off a cliff. When the man wakes up, he finds the kid's mutilated body in a boat docked on the shore. A year later, Daigo has his second child. He doesn't know that his firstborn is growing up and becoming a practically full-fledged child. The new limbs allow the boy to train and lead an active life. There is a strange but mysterious power in the boy, an incredible thirst for life. At the age of 6, the boy experienced his first true evil. Demons, sensing Hyakimaru's power, opened a hunt for him. Junji trains the blind boy in the art of war, eventually making his skills perfect. The guy starts fighting monsters alone, and after one of these fights, the kid suddenly grows a lost leg. Demons don't just eat people. At times they mislead them into letting them use their power, taking something precious in return. Junji realizes that the demons took the boy's body parts in exchange for such power. Junji releases the boy into the world so that he can finally get his body back. Hyakimaru has been standing motionless in the pouring rain for an hour and a half. A mutilated man passes by and asks for help. Hyakimaru senses the presence of an evil soul nearby and follows its trail. An elderly man pounces on the boy. His mind is possessed by a cursed sword, thirsty for blood. In one blow, the sword stabs Hyakimaru in the prosthesis, and the lad immediately throws him off the cliff. The man goes after his sword. Dororo goes down to retrieve the prosthesis. The boy tries to remove the cursed sword and is subjected to demonic spells. The elderly man's sister finds his exhausted body and brings it to the temple. Meanwhile, the sword, discovered by Dororo, tries to find its former master. Hyakimaru finds the boy and exposes his blades, hoping to get rid of the ill-fated weapon. The man recalls how, in the army, his master forced the heads off the shoulders of innocent people. The more the instrument was soaked in blood, the sharper the sword became and the more ruthless its master became. Hyakimaru knocks the sword out of Dororo's hands, after which the old man grabs his weapon again. The boy has to poke the man right in front of his sister. He had no choice, the sword would find ways to return to its master time after time. Another evil spirit is defeated, and the boy gets a hearing. The sound was the most shocking of all that Hyakimaru managed to bring back. The cacophony in his head never stopped. He didn't know which sounds, of all the ones he heard, he should listen to and which ones he shouldn't. He drowned in a sea of sounds. Dororo wants the boy to take a break from fighting, but the demon, who suddenly appeared in the form of a bird, does not let the boy do that. It gets harder and harder for the boy to fight, but a blind old man suddenly appears from the forest to help. Hyakimaru wakes up to the beautiful singing coming from the river valley. The boy is very weak, most of his body is restored, so he feels all the pain from his wounds. Mio takes the wounded lad and his company to the temple shelter. The old man takes to the road to find a safe haven where there will be no fighting. With each destroyed statue, there is more trouble in the city of Daigo. War is coming and the fields without rains are once again no longer yielding threats. Mio's singing is the only thing that doesn't irritate Hyakimaru's ears. The girl sings for the young man, and meanwhile the blind old man returns to town. The man has found a safe place for them to move to, but there is one big problem. A monster now owns the place. A weakened Hyakimaru goes into battle. A huge bug tries to drag him into his underground lair, but the guy stabs his sharp blade right into his neck. In the fight, the guy gets his voice back but loses his leg. Mia goes to work, and Dororo decides to follow her to keep the girl out of danger. The little boy discovers that this girl with a beautiful voice is satisfying the local military in order to maintain her shelter. A battered Mio returns home and notices a blood trail leading to Hyakimaru's room. Taamaru, Daigo's second son, wants to go to war. The boy dreams of distinguishing himself in battle to finally receive praise from his mother. The boy realizes that there is something in her life that she cares about much more than she cares about him. Mio fears that because of her actions, Hikamaru will see her dirty soul. However, she doesn't know that to the blind boy, she remains the person with the most pure soul he has ever met. Mio goes to work again. Dororo feels sorry for her, but is not the least bit ashamed of his friendship with the girl. The boy is sure that when the war is over, the girl will surely be able to make all her dreams come true. Hyakimaru wants to finish the battle with the demon. He didn't finish it last time, so he saw it as his duty to return, even though he managed to get his voice back. Surprisingly, after the fight, the guy's leg grows back again. Dororo notices a column of smoke looming over Mio's shelter. They go back and see a bunch of samurais standing over the lifeless bodies of their friends. The samurais saw the girl offering her services to the various clan camps. They decided to deal with her because they suspected the girl of espionage. Suddenly, a vengeful beast awakens in Hyakimaru and cuts to pieces all the samurai responsible for the death of the sweet-voiced girl. Dororo finds in the Mayo's hands a sack of rice, which the girl dreamed of planting for her orphanage after the end of the war. The boy promises to finish the job started by a beautiful girl with a pure soul. Hyakimaru is given the opportunity to speak, so Dororo tries to make him laugh, but he doesn't respond to the boy's attempts. Suddenly there is laughter, which turns out to be the tricks of a demonic spider. Hyakimaru immediately throws off his prosthetic arms and engages in a fierce fight with it. But the demon binds Hikamaru and escapes to the village, where he managed to escape. After all, he knows how to turn into a beautiful girl. The boys go to the village after the demon. However, they encounter the strange mood of the locals. The village is strictly guarded, and all because of cases that began to occur not so long ago. It turns out that at night in the village began to disappear residents. Therefore, a reward has been announced for the capture of the kidnapper. Dororo convinces Hyakimaru to linger in the village to help people and get a worthwhile reward. The next morning, a demon in the form of a beautiful girl is found by an ordinary workman. He invites the girl into his house to help and feed her, and then goes to work, leaving the demon to rest in his house. Meanwhile, the guys explore the village and learn that many residents live as slaves in the quarry, and many are dying. Dororo suggests that the monster only comes out when it gets dark enough. In the evening, when the workman returns to the demon, they discuss life in the village. During the conversation, the man notices a cockroach and lets it out, which seems like something too strange for the demon. At night, the demoness intends to kill the worker, but is distracted by human food and changes her mind. Meanwhile, both Dororo and Hyakimaru search all night for the demon to no avail. So they decide to sleep for at least a little while before sunrise. When the boys wake up, it turns out that someone has been kidnapped again during the night. In the evening, the demon finds out from the worker why he went out late at night. And it turns out that he has a major income that no one knows about. He is the one who is the kidnapper. However, he doesn't hurt anyone. The man helps people escape from the village who are tired of the slave labor conditions at the quarry. The emaciated demon is penetrated by the story of a man who is willing to help her gratuitously. And at night the man decides to help the girl escape. But on the way, the fugitives meet the guys. However, even after learning the truth, the man stands up for the demon. He confesses that he has not harmed anyone, and the kidnapper is himself. Immediately, the guards of the village appear and learn the whole truth. It turns out that there is no reward for catching the kidnapper, and the guards of the village are deceivers working for the local dictator. A battle ensues, during which the demon kills the guards. Hyakimaru attacks the demon, and the worker continues to help the girl escape. When the couple reaches the secret passage, Demoness offers the man an escape. But the man refuses. He knows he cannot stay in the village. So he decides to voluntarily sacrifice his life force to the demon so that she will have the strength to escape. But she does not agree. At this point they are attacked by the village guards. They kill the worker, which pisses the demon off. and a distraught spider attacks the warriors' squad, drinking away their life force. Hyakimaru tries to stop the spider, but he easily disarms him. She heads towards the man, who she decides to take to a doctor to save his life. Hyakimaru changes her mind about attacking the demon, as she sees that thanks to a simple worker with a pure heart, she was able to change. And everyone whose power she took away stayed alive. After some very strange discoveries, the boys continue on their way, and Dororo begins to appreciate the life of all living creatures even more, which causes Hyakimaru to laugh. The guys continue on their way. Dororo is clearly trying to make Hyakimaru laugh. Suddenly a very strange wedding ceremony is walking toward them. At that moment a man dressed as a wolf appears and tries to attack the passing ceremony. It turns out that the guy's name is Sarah, and he is trying to protect his sister, who has been sent to a wedding with a monster. The guys agree with Saru that for a small fee in the form of a piece of gold to help him defeat the monster. And together they go to the place where the demon lives. The guys find Saru's sister and try to save her, but she says she decided to sacrifice herself to the monster to save her village. Hyakimaru notices something strange. His vision, which allows him to see demons, fails, and he sees everything around him as red. But it turns out that there's nothing wrong with his vision. The thing is, the fog enveloping the guys is also part of the monster. That's why Hyakimaru sees everything around him in red. The demon kills the guards and attacks the boy, Sarah, but his sister saves her brother's life by giving her own in return. After which the demon goes into hiding. The guys find out from Sarah that Uma, that's the name of the girl bride, not really his sister, and that he wanted to save her because she was very kind to him. At night Saru cries in her sleep for the loss of her sister. Hyakimaru notices this and he decide to catch the monster as a bait, which turns out to be Dororo himself. The boy provokes and taunts the monster in every way, and after trapping him the boys try to blow him up, but still unsuccessfully. Because of the veil before his eyes, Hyakimaru could not see the monster. So he used the sound of his own arrows to find a way to hit the demon. And with the help of Dororo, he was even able to defeat him. For killing this demon, Hyakimaru got his nose back. The guys continue on their way. But Dororo becomes ill and Hyakimaru carries him in his arms to the healer, who turns out to be a nun who helps the boy recover. While resting, Dororo notices flowers that remind him of the death of his parents. And we are transported to the flashback, where we learn that the boy's father was the head of the squad that fought against the samurai. But due to the treachery of his best friend, the samurai managed to disarm the entire squad of Dororo's father. But the boy's father and mother were spared and the whole family went on the road. A little later they came upon a village of samurai in battle with whom Dororo's father had died. And a little later, Dororo's emaciated and dehydrated mother also died in a field of the very flowers that now lie before her son. After 3 days, Dororo is better. However, while praying for him, the nun calls Dororo a girl for some reason. Dororo doesn't respond to this. Nevertheless, finally cured, the guys are on the road again. Well, we are shown Daigo Kagemitsu, who is informed by one of his subordinates of an obstruction to their squad in the form of a guy with prosthetics instead of arms, which shocks Kagemitsu. He orders them to find Hyakimaru. Meanwhile, as their entire conversation is overheard by Tehamaru, Daigo Kagemitsu learns that due to a drought lasting more than 2 months, his village may completely lose its crops, which will not only leave people without food, but also put everyone in danger because the neighboring troops are already preparing to attack the exhausted settlement. Meanwhile, Tehamaru tries to find out what his father is hiding from him and sends his subjects after his subordinate. Kagemitsu goes to the Temple of Devils, where he sees many devil faces cut in half. The man realizes that his son is alive and that he gets his limbs back by killing demons. Hyakimaru himself encounters another demon, after killing whom Dororo washes his elder mentor's belongings in the river, and fantasizes about how they will get to the village, where there is a lot of food. Later that evening, Hyakimaru's brother Toemaru interrogates his father's subordinate, who was assigned to find Hyakimaru. but the latter is unresponsive, unsuccessfully trying to bite off his tongue. So Tohemaru decides to ask his father directly about everything, clarifying whether his mother is also praying to the headless statue. But he gets no answer. Angered, he rushes away to his secret place of power. There his subjects come to him and he tells him that his father does not take him seriously, and he says that he has never seen him in such a state. But their dialogue is interrupted by noise from a nearby village. It turns out that she is being terrorized by a demon in a whirling current. So Tohemaru decides to help fight the whirlpool with her mouth. During the first battle, Tohemaru cuts off the monster's claw, but it manages to escape. Tohemaru comes up with an ingenious plan. He and his squad lure the monster into shallow water and then block the platinum, thereby starting to fight the demon on land. But at the last moment, he manages to breach the dam and almost defeat Tohemaru's squad. Suddenly Hyakimaru attacks the monster and cuts it open in front of his brother. Tohemaru asks Hyakimaru who he is, but Dororo answers for him and demands a reward for his rescue. Hyakimaru says his name, after which he and Dororo take their reward and continue on their way. At the next settlement, they meet a weeping girl who screams at the sight of the boys that The demon's child is returned. The guys meet by Wamaru and tells them all about what happened. He says he knows the guys have killed people too and advises them to be careful. Dororo is upset that there is no business for them in the village, when suddenly he and Hyakimaru accidentally overhear a conversation between the locals and learn about the curse of the demons. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru's mother overhears a conversation between her husband and the subjects and learns that her son is alive. Dororo and his brother come to a very strong demon wall. There they meet a boy who tells the backstory of the place and says he dreams of finding his mother. And Daigo Kagemitsu decides to find and kill his son for the sake of the village's prosperity. But his wife is against it. Their conversation is overheard by Tohemaru, learns some of the truth, and sets out to find the truth. At night, the boys engage in battle with a fiery demon fox, who first splits into many small foxes and then becomes one huge monster. And while Hyakimaru fights it, Skiroko, a new acquaintance of the boys, recklessly runs over the wall. Dororo tries to stop him, but they end up captured together. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru almost loses the battle with the demon, but is rescued by his father's squad. Hyakimaru doesn't know whose flame he sees before him until he addresses it. But all he will answer is the question of why the devil's spawn is still alive. Daigo Kagemitsu orders him to kill his son, but he manages to escape. Dororo also manages to escape and successfully escapes from captivity, having learned there that his brother's family crest belongs to the Daigo clan. Tohemaru learns the truth about his brother from his father and mother. That's when Hyakimaru himself appears, who is attacked by his father's subjects. Taiga orders him to kill his son, but Tohemaru is against it. So the father suggests that his son choose either his people or his brother, and if he wishes to stop the latter's torment, break the deal with his father's demons. Dororo finds his brother and together they realize that the Daigo clan is his family. They decide to rescue Sukeroku, who by then has already been sentenced to death. There, the two clans start a battle. Tohemaru also arrives at the scene of the battle, saying he will kill his brother to protect his people. The brothers begin to fight. Suddenly they are attacked by a demon. Tohemaru finds himself wounded in the eye by his brother, who also kills the demon. The boy's mother arrives on the battlefield and sacrifices herself to demons in an attempt to save the children. The wall collapses and all the troops retreat. Sukeroku meets his mother, and the guys continue on their way. After his situation with his mother, Hyakimaru becomes obsessed with finding demons and fighting over his limbs. He barely sleeps or eats, much to Dororo's dismay. The next adversary on the path of the guys is an unusual demon who moved into the statue of Buddha. According to legend, the carver wanted to create a statue of Buddha with a perfect face, and he redesigned the face of his statue for many years, but he could not achieve a face worthy of Buddha. That's why he died in grief before reaching his goal. But some time later, a demon possessed the statue, resurrected the carver, and endowed him with the ability to turn into fellow travelers and ordered him to bring everyone who came near the waterfall to cut and score their faces. This time the carver turned into Dororo's mother. In her guise, he met Hyakkimaru and her brother and fed them dinner, telling them the story of the faceless demon at the same time. Afterwards, he put her to sleep by slipping sleeping pills into her supper and dragged Hyakkimaru to the statue to cut off her face. But the waking Dororo was able to persuade the carver in the guise of his mother not to kill Hyakkimaru. And he got out and cut the demon's face open. Then the boys continued on their way and came to the hot springs. There they encountered Baiwamaru and found a map on Dororo's back, manifesting itself when the body heats up. It turns out that the map that leads to riches was left on Dororo's back by his father, and it is only part of the whole journey. The second part of the map was left on Dororo's mother's back, and before she died, the woman made Dororo learn it by heart. Baiwamaru tells the boys that what they find by following this path can change the whole world. They can create their own state, influence history, or they can waste it all on themselves. So they should take this information responsibly. And until they decide what to do, Hyakkimaru and Dororo simply continue on their way. Soon the guys encounter a spirit who began to pursue them all the way to the burnt-out temple they found, where the guys decided to spend the night. There they met Sabame, the lord of the local lands. The man invited them to his house to keep the travelers safe and gladly listened to the stories of their journeys. Sabame also told them about the demons that live in the burnt-out temple. After a hearty lunch, the boys went to bed, but their sound sleep was interrupted by a huge caterpillar, the child of a demon. But Hyakkimaru managed to overcome it. After that, the demon moth himself flew in after the caterpillar. It turned out that the caterpillar's attack was set up by Sabame, who is in cahoots with the demon. But the guys don't know that yet. In the morning after breakfast, Dororo goes to explore the area. Everything around him seems suspiciously strange. As he walks, he stumbles upon a building in the woods. He enters, but the place turns out to be a trap and Dororo is sent to be eaten by a multitude of caterpillars. However, he is rescued by the same spirit that had previously followed the boys. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru learns the truth from Sabame. And despite his pure thoughts, he vows to kill all demons until he gets his whole body back. Hyakkimaru begins to fight a demon moth. During the fight, the entire village begins to burn, and Hyakkimaru himself falls from a great height, causing his prosthetic leg to break. But after Hyakkimaru recovers, he defeats the demon, for which he gets his spine back. At the end of the battle, Dororo looked at all the consequences of their actions and wondered if they were doing the right thing. After all, killing demons doesn't lead them to a better world. He says that if Hyakkimaru continues to be so indifferent to others, he will end up becoming one of the demons himself. To which the brother again makes it clear that he doesn't care. All that matters to him is getting back what is rightfully his. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru's brother Taomaru trains to live and fight with one eye. Since in his last fight with his brother, Hyakkimaru cut out one of his eyes. Well, Dororo and Hyakkimaru's paths diverge. And when the second one realizes what happened, Dororo is no longer around. Dororo himself is found by Itachi. He turns out to have part of the map that was on Dororo's mother's back. And he was specifically looking for the part of the map that was on Dororo's back. The boy shows his back to prove that he has no card. Itachi, in turn, orders the warriors to steal the child in order to beat the truth out of him. A little later, we learn that Itachi dug up Dororo's mother in order to get the map. Upon arriving at the cape, Itachi gives Dororo his word that if they find the treasure, he will give the guy a piece. Then he orders his men to get boats, as all the boats at the cape have been broken. Then a one-armed young fisherman appears. Shiranui, he is ready to ferry Itachi's men to the right place for a fee. During the crossing, it turns out that the boats Shiranui are tied to his sharks, whom he considers his family. Dororo finds out from the guy where his arm has gone. To which Shiranui answers that he deliberately fed it to his sharks. After that, they began to feed only on humans. The fisherman admits that he used to only feed them dead humans, but now he feeds them live ones as well. It turns out that the whole boat trip was a lure to feed Dororo, Itachi and his men to the sharks. The sharks ate one of the human boats and left the other where Dororo and Itachi himself were for the evening. The sharks are all on the boat, and Ikiro and Itachi have left the other one for the evening. The entire crew, including Itachi himself, have already prepared for death and morally surrendered. However, Dororo himself was not ready to die. He motivated everyone to fight to the last man. He tied a rope to himself and jumped into the water to bait the shark. The moment it got as close to him as possible, the guys on the boat pulled Dororo out and killed the shark that jumped out the next. Then they threw the shark's corpse ashore, where they found it. Shiranui, the bandits surrounded the guy and punished him for his shenanigans. After that, Itachi went back to his plan to search for gold. His team began to examine Dororo's body to find a map on it. And it turned out that Dororo was actually a girl. Bringing her closer to the fire, the map on Dororo's back showed up. And after tying Dororo up, the whole Itachi team went in search of the treasure. Shiranui turned out to be alive and vowed to avenge the shark's death. Next we learn the story of Dr. Juki, who restores soldiers' limbs with prosthetics. While treating the soldiers, he and his traveling companion are attacked by a demon. However, Hyakimaru immediately appears and kills him. Juki is startled by Hyakimaru's appearance. He examines him from all angles and finds himself deeply happy to learn that he now has real skin. He can hear and speak. The men talk, recalling the past when Juki found the boy, gave him a name and a body, raised him and taught him everything he knew. Hyakimaru asks for new prostheses so he can fight. But first, Juki, who doesn't really like what Hyakimaru has turned into, decides to feed the boy. During dinner, Hyakimaru tells Juki that he met his father and that he fed him to the demons. The doctor refuses to give Hyakimaru a new leg because if he does, the guy will go out to kill demons, reclaim his entire body and destroy an entire village. That would make him responsible for the lives of a lot of people. And according to Juki, Hyakimaru's father would have to carry that burden himself. Juki can't take on the burden. So he chops the prosthesis in half and apologizes to Hyakimaru. At this point a landslide closes the entrance to the cave. And Hyakimaru and the doctor remain trapped inside. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru's brother Taamaru has changed a lot and has become more aloof from everyone. His mother gradually recovers. Taamaru doesn't visit her, but his father comes to see her. She talks about the headless goddess of mercy. In her opinion, it was the goddess who saved the boy by giving him her head. After all, only one of the demons in the temple failed to eat part of the child. So the woman believes that Hyakimaru will get his body back, and their valley is promised prosperity. But her husband won't listen to his wife. He accuses her of thinking too much. Later, Hajimitsu is reported to have seen Dororo, to which he orders Taamaru to go after him. He is then sent to find Taamaru, but Taamaru is not there when the demon, in the form of a giant rat, is dispatched. As soon as he can, Taamaru is sent to find his brother. He in turn, after a heartbreaking conversation with the doctor, was able to dig his way out. There was a demonic tree waiting for them, its fruit producing horrible creatures somewhat resembling lions. Hyakimaru fought them and destroyed the tree. After saying goodbye to the doctor, he continued on his way. Shiranui, who swore to revenge, ordered the second shark to eat all the offenders. But before that, the shark ate its dead counterpart and turned into a huge white monster. The shark decided to attack Dororo, but she was saved by Hyakimaru, who suddenly appeared. It turned out that the shark is a demon, and that's why Hyakimaru got his leg back after the battle. The boys followed Itachi's squad, who had come a long way by then. The bandits had run into traps several times along the way and had suffered considerable losses. By this time, the fleet led by Taamaru was already approaching the shore. Both the bandits and Hyakimaru and Dororo noticed this. The latter decided to band together to stop Daigo's troops. But they were figured out by Taamaru and did not let them destroy their guys. A battle ensued, during which the bandits took Dororo and fled. and Hyakimaru broke one of his hand swords. Itachi and his squad were attacked by Daigo's men. All but Dororo and the badly wounded Itachi died. And Dororo accidentally, by pushing huge statues down the mountain, stopped Daigo's troops. Before he died, Itachi decided to ask Dororo for help and asked to show the very treasure one last time. But then the fisherman showed up and blew himself up, setting off a massive landslide. As a result, he finished off a significant number of Daigo warriors. Itachi and Dororo found themselves right in front of the treasure, so the bandit leader was able to fulfill his wish and die after seeing the gold. Taihamaru and his remaining troops were able to escape, and Hyakimaru and Dororo decided that the treasure was better off staying here for now. Since Hyakimaru broke his hand sword in the last fight, the boys went in search of a master blacksmith who could repair it. In the village where they were to find the master, they questioned the locals, who, in response to questions about the blacksmith, began to tell unflattering stories about the master himself and his supposedly ugly daughter. However, when the boys found the blacksmith's daughter, it turned out to be all a rumor, and the beautiful girl happily agreed to help them. And Hyakimaru even showed signs of attention to her. Altogether, Hyakimaru, Dororo, the master's daughter, and the blacksmith himself went to the temple to clean the swords. It turned out that the girl herself was just as interested in Hyakimaru. And a bit later we learned that a demon lives on the roof of the temple, making people say and do completely opposite things to their wishes. Because of this, in a conversation with Dororo, Hyakimaru began to say that he would stop killing demons and would not return his body. He also said that he would no longer travel with Dororo, as there was no longer any reason for their friendship. The blacksmith's amorous daughter intervened in their conversation and asked Hyakimaru if they would marry. And the demon-infused boy said yes. The excited girl began to shout about her wedding to everyone around her. The villagers began to say all sorts of nasty things to her. When she realized that something was wrong, Dororo decided to find out what it was all about. After a while, she realized that everything unusual began when they came to the temple. So she went there at once. On the roof of the temple was the demon whom the girl had noticed. At that moment, Hyakimaru also came to the temple with his bride. However, he did not respond to Dororo's request to kill the demon, as he had already fallen under his spell and attacked his friend. However, the same blacksmith came to the rescue and knocked the demon out. Hyakimaru came to his senses and apologized to his friend. A little later, Hyakimaru's bride's joy at being able to catch the demon was abruptly replaced by sadness, as she realized that the reason for the wedding was those very spells. The wedding had to be cancelled and the guys continued on their way. Meanwhile, the Daigo lands gradually began to die. There was a drought on most lands, locusts had eaten all the rice before the harvest, and in some of the villages the epidemic began. Tamaru realizes that all this is because Hyakimaru is still alive, so he goes to the Hellfire Shrine to figure out what to do next. Hyakimaru himself and Dororo set out in search of another demon. Along the way, the boys met a samurai named Suboda. He too was looking for a demon to kill and avenge his mother. Together with him, the guys went to the place where this demon is often located. There they met Nu, a demon assembled from parts of other demons killed in Hyakimaru's past. When the fight began at the most unexpected moment, Hyakimaru was also attacked by Suboda, who it turns out is helping Nu eat people. During the fight, the demon pushes Hyakimaru and Dororo off the cliff. This causes Dororo's arm to end up under the rubble in just the right place, which gradually fills with water. Hyakimaru tries to save Dororo, but nothing works. The water begins to fill faster and faster. And at the last moment, the boys are saved by an unexpectedly Biwamaru, who at the cost of his sword, frees Dororo's hand. After that, the battle with the demon continued. Nu attacked Hyakimaru, but Hyakimaru used his swords to beat him back. This greatly affected the samurai. From the flashback shown, we learn that when the demon attacked Saburoth's mother, the latter chickened out, and instead of fighting him with dignity, he cut off the hand of his pleading mother. Because of this, everyone around him began to consider him a coward and unworthy samurai. However, after the demon began attacking other people, the samurai began to console himself that everyone around him was a coward, which meant he had done nothing wrong. That's why he was amazed when he saw what the fearless Hyakimaru was capable of. The frightened samurai pounced on Hyakimaru and pleaded his fear, to which Hyakimaru coldly and brutally only chopped up the demon. The samurai pounced on Hyakimaru again and said that he had always wanted to be like him, but it was too late. So he sacrificed himself to the demon, which brought him back to life with even more power. After the battle, Dororo came to the scene of the battle. He found an enraged Hyakimaru chopping up the demon's corpse into many pieces. He had no body parts when he died, just as he had with the fiery fox. After calming down, Hyakimaru went to Daigo for his body. On their way, the boys were met by one of Daigo's servants, and Kagamitsu himself was informed of the spread of the virus in some of his lands. The head of Daigo ordered that all the villages affected by the virus be burned down. Because of the wars that were about to break out from all the other villages, all the men and horses were mobilized. Among these horses was Idara, one of the best horses of the Daigo villages, who did not want to obey and be separated from her foal. And the same servant Daigo, who happened to see the guys approaching, had already reached his master and reported what was happening. Tamaru, who overheard the conversation, put forward his candidacy to fight Hyakimaru. His father accepted, but secretly sent more men to help him. The head of Daigo himself went with an army to defend his lands in war. The boys met Tamaru and his men, and a battle ensued. In the course of it, Hyakimaru cut off the hands of Tamaru's assistants and then slashed the latter's face as well. When the boy was almost victorious, the warrior Tamaru, sent by his father, appeared and detonated the bombs tied to Idara's horse. Hyakimaru and his horse fell off the cliff because of it. Kojimitsu's assistant told him why Tamaru's father had sent him here. He asked the boy to return home, but he wouldn't listen and decided to kill Hyakimaru himself. But protecting the boy, the assistant put the heir to the throne to sleep, took Dororo with him, and went back. Meanwhile, a demon had entered the dead horse. Daigo Kojimitsu's soldiers prepared to repel an impending attack by the Asakura clan, planning to fight at Banmona. The warrior, upon learning of Dororo's abduction, becomes enraged and summons the flaming Midoro to his side. The wounded Hyogo asks the lord about the whereabouts of his sister, Mutsu, who finds the girl at the medicine man. She has lost her right arm and is also weakened by the illness she has been hiding all this time. Mutsu refuses to let Hyakimaru into the room, as she does not want to risk infection, and takes a promise from him to glorify the Daigo lands. Meanwhile, Dororo tries in vain to get out from behind the bars and remembers Hyakimaru's cruelty in the last battle. Suddenly Nui no Kata appears in the room and frees the prisoner, saying that all the forces of the castle have been thrown into preparing for the coming war. The woman cannot allow another child to be destroyed for the whim of a grown man. she thanks Dororo for helping Hyakimaru and repents for the cruel words that made the young warrior think his mother had disowned him. Nui no Ka leads the orphan outside through the tunnel. After saying goodbye to the child, the woman's conscience awakens in her and she decides to join Dororo. Going down the river, the Lord confesses that she wants to redeem herself to Hyakimaru and see her son just once, then she will understand how to live her life. A strong current, resulting from the accumulation of rainwater, breaks the fugitive's boat. As a result, the two are rescued by locals, refugees from Dago. Nui no Kata decides to stay behind to help care for the sick and wounded, but despite her altruistic thoughts, Dororo convinces the woman to continue with him to prevent the demon inside Hyakimaru from taking over the guy. Meanwhile, the gravely ill Mutsu leaves the camp, prompting Tamaru and Hugo to go after her. While Hyakimaru reunites with the demon horse Midoro and works his way through Daigo's soldiers in search of Dororo, Mutsu staggers to the demon temple and offers himself to the 12th and final demon to protect the land and its people. Tamaru and Hugo arrive just in time. They see the evil one reject the girl's sacrifice and instead reward Mutsu and Hugo with hands and give Tamaru a second eye. As the villagers of Dago near the border prepare for an impending war, the cult Midoro of the settlement is greatly disturbed and runs away, forcing the men to go in search of him. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru attacks Tamaru, Mutsu and Hugo to regain his eyes and hands. The trio decides to fight Dago's heir to prevent the demon from awakening and destroying the lands. Nui no Kata and Dororo accidentally witness their battle, but Biwahoshi stops the twosome from interfering in the confrontation. Midoro attacks Mutsu and Hugo, but is distracted by the appearance of his foal and is wounded. In a rage, the demon horse rips the man's head off and crushes his sister, but as their bodies are controlled by the 12th demon, he uses their hands to mortally wound Midoro. After Mutsu and Hugo die, Hyakimaru's hands return to him. With his bare hands, the young man grabs the two sword blades that were in his prosthesis to continue fighting Tamaru. Awakened emotions cause him to lay down his weapons for a time when he sees Nui no Kata and Dororo approaching. Confused, Hyakimaru runs away and Tamaru rushes after him. The villagers, Biwahoshi, Nui no Kata, and Dororo discuss the value of one life compared to the needs of many and conclude that only what they have gained with their own hands will last. On the border of Keijimitsu, Daigo leads his army forward, determined to defeat Asur and give meaning to all he has sacrificed. Hyakimaru follows Tamaru to Daigo Castle, where their battle resumes. During a fierce confrontation, they overturn a candle stand and set the castle on fire. The smoke attracts the attention of Doo and Nui no Kata, who are concerned about the two brothers, and the woman decides to go to the residence herself, even if it would cost her life. Tamaru and Hyakimaru continue their bitter battle inside the burning Daigo castle. Each of the brothers believes that it is their inherited possession. Meanwhile, Nui no Kata leaves Biwahoshi and Dororo, enters the castle through a hidden tunnel and meets Juki. Hyakimaru finally defeats Tamaru, but does not kill him. The demon with the young lord's eyes tries to take control of Tamaru, but he removes the eyes, which return to Hyakimaru. After the hero kills the demon, he becomes whole for the first time, and Juki gives him a newly carved statue of the goddess of mercy. Dororo and Hyakimaru are reunited when the castle burns. Nui no Kata nurses Tamaru as he dies in her arms as the building finally collapses. Meanwhile, the last statue of the demon falls in the Hall of Hell, and Keijimitsu Daigo leads his army against Asura, losing many of his men. Later, Dororo offers to return the treasure to help Daigo's refugees, and Hyakimaru finds his father wounded but undefeated in the Hall of Hell. However, when the young warrior leaves, sparing his cruel father and leaving the statue of the goddess of mercy behind, Kaijimitsu realizes that had he not made a pact with the demons, Hyakimaru might have been able to save his land. The brave young man leaves alone, parting ways with Dororo, knowing, however, that they will meet again in the future. A few years later, the grown-up Dororo, who has been a girl all along, happily runs to greet the smiling Hyakimaru. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Bye.